Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and I welcome all of you back to another Rage video where tonight, ladies and gentlemen, oh boy, we have got a very special video installed for all of you guys tonight. But first off, I kind of want to explain that I decided, maybe a little bit against my better judgment, as I put my my curb chain on for this. I'm bringing out every little accessory really for this, because I feel like what's about to happen is one of those once in a lifetime experiences. Because tonight, ladies and gentlemen, for the very first time, well, this is actually only the second time I've ever checked out Led Zepplin on this channel, with the first being Whole Lotta Love, and that was back in 2018, or around about this time actually. That long ago. There we go, got that sorted out. So I decided that if we're going to be dealing with something as iconic as Stairway to Heaven, then I may as well get myself all glammed up, I suppose. I couldn't think of the right words to say, because I honestly cannot wait to do this. And I think, honestly, there's a lot of stuff out there that sometimes I'm thinking to myself, why have I never actually got round to listening to this or watching that? I mean, for the longest time, I was going to absolutely refuse to watch A Clockwork Orange until I feel like something, maybe it could have been on my stag do. I probably could have watched that film. In the end, I ended up watching watching the movie when I was about 18. I absolutely loved the movie. I actually loved the book even more. And that was just one of the things I could take off my bucket list. It seems like a fairly shallow list, all things considered, but I'm glad that I did it. And which kind of brings me on to a little bit about why we're doing Stairway to Heaven now, and why I've decided to not wait for another point in my life to start doing it. The reason why, ladies and gentlemen, believe it or not, is because of Kanye West. I was doing a video on Can't Tell Me Nothing by him last night, and I talked through the sort of things that influenced him when he wrote that, and he went off on stuff it sounded like there were parts of it that were written as though you could written Gerard Butler to get round to have him write him for this. And he also mentioned he wanted a very rock vibe, almost something you'd hear from Led Zepplin. Now, Kanye is a completely different kettle of fish altogether, because there are some things I don't like about Kanye's music, but the things that I do like, I absolutely love. And if there's at least one thing I can say that's leading me a little bit optimistic, because aside from Whole Lotta Love, the only other song there's only two other songs I've heard from Led Zepplin: Dazed and Confused and Black Dog, if I remember correctly. Now, aside from that, nothing. Which means that whatever I come... You know what this is like, ladies and gentlemen? Tell me if you get... Because for those who don't know, I'm a huge fan of the band Overkill. And one of my absolute favourite lyrics of all time is, standing at the crossroads, which way you gonna go and what you gonna do when it comes. This is one of those... It's one of those occasions, but it's not crossroads. It's staring at a giant door. And you could either go around this door, or you could just literally open the door and walk through it. It's sort of life will continue either way, whether I decide to take a look at this or not. And again, if you're probably wondering why I bought the studs, is that I decided this is the first time I've actually tried to show these off, and it's a little bit difficult to move my wrists around a little bit, but you live and learn, ladies and gentlemen. So anyway, back to what I was talking about. Life will continue either way, whether or not I listen to Stairway to Heaven or not. But I feel as if I don't, then I'll never know what's behind that door. So, with all that out of the way, knowing practically nothing about what on earth I'm getting myself into, which I've said that a few times before, is that sometimes in life you really have to know what it is you're getting yourself into. But I'm putting the headphones on now. It's a bit too late to start changing my mind now. It's what you guys came round here for, isn't it? So, with all that being said and done, if you guys want to check out the original video for yourselves, links will all be in the description down below. Let's do this. Stairway to Heaven. The first time I ever heard about this song was when I was about like 9 years old. Some nearly 14 years later, I'm finally doing this. Stairway to Heaven. In 3, 2, 1, and...
There's a lady who's sure all that glitters is gold, and she's buying a stairway to heaven. When she gets there, she knows if the stores are all closed, with a word she can get what she can. She's buying a stairway here. There's a sign on the wall, but she wants to be sure, 'cause you know sometimes words have to mean. In a tree by the brook, there's a songbird who sings. Sometimes all of our thoughts.
This is not a song, ladies and gentlemen. This is poetry in motion. I think this actually may be the very first time since I started doing reactions to music that I'm just straight up hearing poetry. The closest I think I could ever remember to doing anything remotely similar to something like Stairway to Heaven is perhaps there was this one song by Nightwish. Oh my god, I swear to god, I should know fine well what this song is. It's like a 16-minute song. I think it's about fantastic. No, oh god, I should know fine well exactly what that song is. You know what? Because it depicts a narrative of like a fantastic voyage, and when I'm going to discuss it at the end, but I will remember what that song is after I looked it up soon. It's hard to imagine we're already exactly a quarter way through this.
Spirit is crying for leaving. In my thoughts I have seen rings of smoke through the trees, and the voices of those who stand looking. and long, and the forest will echo with laughter. Sprinkling for the May Queen. Yes, there are two paths you can go by, but in the long run, there's still time to change the road you're on. And it makes me wonder. You don't know the pilot first calling you to join him. Dear lady, can you hear the wind blow? And did you know your stairway lies on the whispering wind?
And there we have it, ladies and gentlemen. That was Stairway to Heaven. Arguably, people have said perhaps one of the greatest songs ever made. And I'll give you my... listen, ladies and gentlemen. If you are new to this channel, then let me just establish some rules I've always had as a point of principle on this channel. I am a man of principles. Maybe not high principles, but ones that matter. And one of the things that I prioritize almost above everything else is that I am honest with myself, and the things that I tell you are not bullshit. I don't like lying to people because I don't like people lying to me. I'd rather they be honest with me, so we would have a better time learning how to understand each other. It's one of the reasons why I think the reason why I have such this, because in a lot of my other videos I have great emphasis on talking about lyrics, because I studied English literature throughout my days in sixth form. It was perhaps the best period of education I think I've ever gotten in my life. I'll take that stuff probably for the rest of my life, and you don't stop looking at the world the same way once you've realized certain things about life. And one of the things I think, throughout all the time I've been listening to music, from all the times that I've been interested about Megadeth and Metallica and the Rolling Stones and Rush, what Stairway to Heaven seems to be more about than I think than some of the other all-time greats is that it's how best can I let me just try and put this into words exactly how I can describe the sound. The sound, like from the intro riff to just how slow and very, very, it's a very sort of like, it's a very like saddish sort of opening, because they're depicting this woman who believes there really is that all these great things she hears about are true, and she's the idea of buying a stairway to heaven is that you think you're going to get in line. You feel as if you're going to see everything you'll need to see in the next world. And by the time she gets there, she finds that it's not all as it seems. All that glitters is not gold, I'm afraid. There's a sign on the wall, but she wants to be sure, because sometimes words have two meanings. Exactly. And stuff like that, life lessons, ladies and gentlemen, that's one of the biggest life lessons you'll probably get, is that words will have two meanings, or sometimes somebody will say something and it means something completely different. And this poor woman has almost ventured, perhaps maybe her entire life, into this idea that money is the root of all happiness and love, and it makes the world go round. And by the time her world is about to come to an end, she feels as like she should be ready for the next one. And how it's a sad state of affairs when when it gets a little bit later on and they get towards like the ending, and you see her and she shines and she looks as if all of a sudden she's got some life still in her. I don't know whether or not they specifically mention things about like age or anything like that, but it sounds like maybe this woman has sort of like been reborn, or rather she's sort of seen exactly the reasons why she was thinking that money was more powerful than anything else in the universe. It's not exactly the best one to have. I like the part where they mention the Piper's character, like somebody that is drawn, like you're drawn towards it. Let me see if I can just like find this part. And it's whispered that soon we'll all call the tune that the Piper will lead us to reason. Maybe simply, ladies and gentlemen, the Piper is just somebody that we didn't realize. It's sort of like a very subconscious idea that we are drawn like a moth to a flame. We are drawn towards something without knowing the reason why. But perhaps it's because we have no reason, or we have no knowledge as to why. I suspect this woman might have had a very sort of sheltered life, that she was like brought up with ideologies from the Catholic Church or the Church of England or something like that, and she was told all these things about God and how you've got to be good towards him, and if it's the only way to get into heaven. I honestly think maybe Robert Plant knew something about this. Maybe maybe everyone involved knew a woman, perhaps like this woman who, like Miss Stairway to Heaven. Maybe Jimmy Page, John Paul Jones, John Bonman, maybe even Peter Grant, the executive producer of the song. Maybe he knew something about. Maybe he knew a woman like the one they're going over. And that's almost like what I'm trying to like take a look at right now, is that it's an epic poem. Remember when I said about, poetry in motion? This is an epic poem, because epic poems are really just kind of stories that are separated into verses and everything else. And I think the more I look at Stairway to Heaven, I think I might even just straight up do a video in the future where I dissect word for word as though this was a piece of poetry. It might be the only time on this channel yet that I've given you guys a demonstration of what my English literature education was like, and what I had to, put into my work, and how I had to talk about poetry or that sort of thing. I love the fact, and again, it starts off slow. It really, really builds itself, because this is like it's a bit like life. There's more energy. There's like a spring in your step. There's more energy. There's more excitement about life, because the opening starts off with the woman just getting into heaven, and she sees everything, and she realizes that it's absolutely nothing like she ever thought it was going to be like. It's like the real world, except somehow it's even worse, because all the people that have ever lived on Earth are in there. Maybe some people she didn't count on seeing again. But then here comes an interesting aspect as to whether or not this woman was even dreaming about this, or whether or not she really felt like she was already there. Let me just try and do this. There's a lady who's sure that glitters is gold, and she's buying a Stairway to Heaven. When she gets there, she knows if the stores are all closed, with a word she can get for what she came for. And she's buying the Stairway. There's a sign on the wall, but she wants to be sure, because sometimes words have two meanings. That could literally be a very subtle way to saying that you've been had, lady. We've conned you out of doing this for us. Because when you think about it, she's bought the Stairway to Heaven, but is she really going to be the only one to use it? And maybe I'm thinking a little bit too literal here, but who knows? Maybe that's what she really had in mind. In a tree by the brook, there's a songbird who sings, "Sometimes all of our thoughts are misgiven." Maybe that's, again, the point I'm trying to make. And you could almost say that also some people are, unfortunately, their births are misgiven. I mean, Robert Plant was born in Wolverhampton, if I seem to remember correctly. Well, I do know he supports Wolverhampton at the very least. I don't know whether he's from Wolverhampton himself. The reason why I say this, ladies and gentlemen, is that if you've never heard of Wolverhampton before, it's best not. Very rough place. I've been there. Very, very rough. Now, with that out of the way, there's a feeling I get when I look to... And I kind of like... I like the fact that it's like changing narratives. Now it goes from her perspective to ours. There's a feeling I get when I look to the west, and my spirit is crying for leaving. Is this guy just looking longingly into the distance to the west and wondering when will it be my turn, or what's coming up next? Because I know this may be a little bit morbid to say this, ladies and gentlemen, but what people need to realize is that this topic about like death and heaven, even if there are people out there who don't believe in heaven, you kind of at least have to understand is that death is sadly kind of a part of all this. Death is as much to do with life as life has to do with death. There are only two absolutes that happen in life, ladies and gentlemen. You are born, and then you die. Everything, and I mean everything in between, is vice. Well, you might. Well, of course, there's an argument to saying about how you were conceived in the first place, what part in the world, what part in history, your parent, who people, what are your parents like, that sort of thing. And if I go a little bit further, in my thoughts I have seen rings of smoke through the trees, and the voices of those who stand looking. I like I'm going to go on a limb and say that trees are metaphors for people, because I get you get the impression that they just stand in the background. They are observing the situation, but they're not really doing anything. Now, you could say whether or not this is because they're just background, that they're just people in the background and they don't matter. But what I'm trying to get to the bottom of, ladies and gentlemen, is, well, if they are trees, then are we still people, or how are we not different from that? I suppose maybe to put this another way, if we look at them as trees, then what do you think they're looking at us, and what do they think of us? Are we fern bracken? Are we maybe just a loose piece of driftwood? Are we just an insignificant twig, not particularly very special, not particularly very important, just trash lying by the side of the road? It's so already in Stairway to Heaven we've discussed issues of disappointment, grave missed opportunities, issues regarding around how you're brought up, to what are your concepts about why you want to do this, and what is the logic behind the way you live your life. And we've also come up to strange topics about personal morality and the significance of trying to understand exactly what your concepts are in terms of what sort of life it is you want to live, or rather, what sort of death do you wish to have? Do you wish to have a death about the idea that you're going to go to a much better place, or are you going to live in the knowledge that even if nothing happens afterwards, you've given hope to those who do believe in heaven, for the fear of, I don't believe in heaven, but I do believe in people who do. As regards perhaps maybe the church's issues about maybe whether or not there is any sort of point, or whether or not good things actually make any difference to all life on earth, if we are only going to lie dead in the ground anyway. That, ladies and gentlemen, is what they would call an ecumenical matter. And unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, it's sadly... Listen, if I could get my dad, because, listen, my dad has a degree in divinity. This is the sort of thing he would probably give me lectures for hours about. He would probably know about more that sort of stuff than I do. I'm just kind of putting it out there because, well, I might even do a second part to this whole reaction and just spend some time talking to my dad and maybe getting some ideas about this. If there's a bustle in your hedgerow, don't be alarmed now. It's just a spring clean from the May Queen. Passage of time, perhaps? I think it's a little bit of a passage of time, because they talk about trees, they talk about hedgerows, greenery, shrubbery, these sort of things that do spring out. Maybe it's like a cyclical, maybe it's just about the weather more than anything. Oh God, how? Oh God, I'm gonna. This is, strangely enough, ladies and gentlemen, for as much as I'm talking and trying to really work out, I'm trying to work out what exactly Plant and Page is. The whole point of the story. What the point? Well, not. It's not so much about what the point of the story is, but rather, am I getting this part right? Is that what they meant by it? Versus, what do I think about it? Because I don't really want to disrespect the memories of Plant and Page. Of course I don't want to do that. But I at least want to try and find out, because music is subjective. And unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, there is another key phrase that it's sort of gone a little bit out of fashion, but one that I think applies wholeheartedly to not really this channel, but to myself. And that is, persona is political, meaning that something is very decisive. People are very decisive. You can have your certain opinions about one person, which may be different to another person, and another person who may have incredibly different opinions about one person might have very favorable ones about people that you might disagree with. But at the same time, at least trying to make the effort and looking into this and looking between the lines and beneath the surface. Although I will say, like, sort of when it gets to like the ending, I can work out certain parts about what they're trying to do, trying to establish that, you know what, maybe it's not too late, and maybe there is still things to do here on Earth without. There's one about like being aware of death and the implications of what could happen afterwards, but it doesn't mean to say that you should be put off or feel as if you've got absolutely no other reason to live with the full knowledge of death on the horizon. You know what this almost reminds me of, ladies and gentlemen? The Great Gig in the Sky. I did a video to that 3 years ago, and then I immediately followed up with why it is. It's like this animatic sort of animation about the story about a guy who dies and then encounters these two kids, life and death, playing on a teeter-totter, and how one has to be with the other, otherwise neither can survive. I remember doing that immediately after that video because I sort of wanted to have a perspective about death and life in sort of like a little bit of a different manner. And I feel as if like I really should like watch that video again, not just for when I talk about Great Gig in the Sky again, but rather just as to what else I feel like I'm capable of putting out there. Your head, anyway, let's try. Yes, there are two paths you can go by, but in the long run, there's still time to change the road you're on. So, are we talking about changing the road that you're on? Is it one about, is this road perhaps the constantly thinking about death, to another one saying that think about the life you're living right now, think about what you're doing, so that you don't... Because the worst thing that could ever happen to anyone, ladies and gentlemen, is living with regret and living with the foreknowledge perfectly well that you could have done this, but you decided not to. They say it's the things you don't do in life you regret, ladies and gentlemen. That's not entirely true, because there are plenty of things that people do regret almost immediately. Your head is humming and it won't go. In case you don't know, the piper's calling you to join him. Dear lady, can you hear the wind blow? And did you know your stairway lies on the whispering wind? And that's sort of where I feel like it comes absolutely into play. That this guy is helping this lady to realize is that your journey to enlightenment is not lying in money, but rather it just lies in the wind. It lies in the atmosphere. It lies all over the earth, because all life is on earth and all life is earth. I might be putting some of these things in slightly over romantic fashions, but I think epic poetry should have a bit of flair of the fantastic, the spectacular, that sort of thing. And as we wind on down the road, I love the fact that, again, it says as we wind, but it's, of course, it's spelled wind. So it's combining both at the same time, because this guy was on about, roads and, that sort of thing earlier. That's a very nice little thing they did there. I like it. Our shadow's taller than our soul. That is the sort of thing that King KTF would go, the rock and roll gods, they please with Led Zepplin. That's the sort of thing King would do if he decides to ever do music reactions again. There walks a lady we all know. who shines white light and wants to show how everything still turns to gold, how the world is gold, how the world is beautiful, how the world has all life in it, how everything has beauty in it. Because everything that's on earth is here, including people's imaginations to believing that everything can look beautiful. It's just straight up it's a more optimistic view of life. It's I wouldn't even really want to call it like redemption or anything like that. It's rather she's sort of seen the light, or she's seen something that she's not seen before, a new perspective, somebody coming along, and your entire world changes its meaning once again because you found someone who can relate to you on every single. A few hours ago, I saw a friend of a friend on Twitter was feeling quite upset because they felt like there was something like strange about the way they looked at life, and I just decided to start talking to him because it's kind of a little bit similar to to an old friend of mine that I spoke to last week. And I just told him that sometimes these things happen when they get older, is that you look at things differently, and life is not all fun and games. Bad things do happen in life, but it's more than just that. It's about how do you come back from that, or what are you planning to do next, and all of that stuff. It's not just about the bad things, it's about the good things that come after it, in a sort of like a never-ending cycle, infinite distraction. Life is the ultimate distraction because we live it and we go through day to day knowing that there are problems, there are good things, there are bad things, but life sometimes, ladies and gentlemen, is all this. And the fact is that we are here to experience it, we are here to enjoy it, we are here to love it, we are here to do as we wish, and I wish more people would. It's how ironic, ladies and gentlemen, that on this earth that we live in right now, we could do with more and more people being cosmopolitan. We invented the phrase, ladies and gentlemen, we may as well actually use it. Cosmopolitan means worldwide, like including everything from every race on earth. Because don't you think their lives, and there'll be people all over the world, ladies and gentlemen, who could be in the same situation right now. Those who are feeling confused and lost and feeling that life is a very bleak and dark, gloomy place. I think if Stairway to Heaven has taught me anything, ladies and gentlemen, and I think if I don't know whether or not Paige and Plant said that this was their intention or not, but I think if there's anything to go by in this video, it should be to see that the whole world around you is golden. And to end this video off, ladies and gentlemen, is to quote, ironically, a Mika song of all things. We are not what you think we are golden. We are golden. It's and once you sort of like peel back the surface of lines like that, well, maybe that's the first thing that will get us to treat our friends, our neighbors, loved ones, people we see or people we've never seen every single day. Let's do that, ladies and gentlemen. Let's do our best to be nicer to each other. Let's do our best to make everyone's days golden. Let's do that, ladies and gentlemen. In fact, you know what? You may have seen me do this before, but I'm going to extend an olive branch of peace, or rather just extend my hand. And to those watching, ladies and gentlemen, let me know if you would like me to shake your hand. I know I can't technically shake your hand now because of things like, screens and, the fact that I'm not there in person, but I can be there in spirit. Because one day, ladies and gentlemen, I'll be gone. Believe it or not. But that does not mean I won't still be here, continuing this lineage, continuing this message, and that should be the end of that. As is all things, ladies and gentlemen, but it's not about the destination, it's about the journey. And the journey has been one of discovery and one of realizing just how beautiful life truly is, the miracle that is existing. And once you have moments like that where you think about them for however long it may be, they become indestructible, impregnable to any outside opinion, to telling you that life is dark and gloomy. So anyway, 14 years has culminated in basically my theory of life, the point of living. I hope all of you guys have enjoyed this with me, this experience, and I will hope to see all of you guys again in the next video. Please leave your thoughts and comments in the comment section down below. I will look forward to reading every single one of them because I feel like you guys are worth that. You are golden.